Hello, my name's Stephen Hughes. I'm a full-time dad to a 2-year-old, a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, 2 girls, 1 boy. My view of austerity and the reason why it was introduced was the failure of the banks. I think that a lot of us don't realise is that because there were so many bank failures and there was such a massive hit on the loss of so much money, and we had to bail out as taxpayers to subsidise other banks. If we look back in history to recoup that kind of money, it had to come out of somebody's pocket. Austerity was brought in because the governments decided the huge, massive debt mountain that people we pushed up to nearly trillions of pounds because of being in debt. Some of the failures that banks failed with us, and personally my opinion, was endowments. People were promised the amount that you would put down for an endowment, you would get that back at it, and so many people appealed, and I think in the appeals process you ended up with a couple of thousands of pounds, but in some cases you were supposed to be getting 40 to 30,000 on average on an endowment. That never materialised. So some people were robbed of that. And then situations that just accumulated, that what was brought in then was failure to sort things out and people to make responsible for their actions, and especially banks and people that were running these banks, failure to bring them to court, failure to the injustices of all that, and then the knock-on effects that for 10 years, and we're still living with it, is austerity. Now, it was a benefits cap because there was a huge misinterpretation that 9 times out of 10 the poor woman with the children, and this is the magnitude these days, because more women are in work than the men these days, because it just accelerates, because everything is levelling off, and so it should be as well because of wages and structure. I'm glad to see that there is more women in society working and getting to the levels that they should be anyway. But like, I became a full-time dad because of my personal situation. I had to give my job up, but I think it's very hard. I didn't realise how difficult it was to look after children, but I realised when I became a full-time dad to 3 children, and how difficult it must be for any person, even with 1 child, let alone 3. And it just physically just takes everything out of you. I mean, there's some days when I'm just like just a walking zombie sometimes, because physically I'm absolutely shattered. I'm not going to admit it. How a woman copes through life, having children, and then just even balance that out with, say, broken relationships, and sometimes that does happen. But it is difficult. It's extremely difficult, and I found that being on this benefit cap has been extremely difficult because everything else has gone up. And obviously before Brexit and this decimalisation push of prices, because everything has just gone through the roof, because they keep going on about, blagging on about the minimum wage. The problem is there's the living wage, then there's the minimum wage. Well, most people are on the minimum wage in Wales, which is where I'm from, which is we're earning a lot more less than some people in England. I'm not saying from the minimum wage, but obviously in England they do get a lot more living wage than we get the minimum wage. But the problem is when you do that and you increase the minimum wage and you can increase the living wage, you're going to find ways of recouping it back, and it usually comes through prices. And I'm afraid the price kick in the last 3 months has really hurt me, and has hurt a lot of people. There's some people obviously still in work, some people unemployed, having to revert to food banks. I mean, I've been there, I've had food banks, and I've had to. The cost of everything down to the bare minimum. I'm struggling with energy bills. I find that they're just, it's just crippling. It's just really hard to get a grasp of where in the future things are going to change. I've got a 2-year-old currently not working because of her, and she's beautiful, and I love spending every day with her, and it's fantastic. But in harsh reality, I think in the back of my mind is, what is the future? What can when I can provide for my children? And I'm finding that very, very hard. But I find structurally the system in this country is extremely unfair, and we do seem to target a lot about the woman. I'll say I'm using the term woman, but I'm a parent on benefits, and it's a wrong persona, because it's an extremely very, very difficult thing to do, is to look after children, and we need to emphasize that, and we can start blaggering on about hammering people with children, because it's a hard situation. Communities have been knocked back by play groups, being knocked back, social care, mental care, everything, every department. We've only just started in our town in Haverfordwest, is where I'm from, in Pembrokeshire, starting to build a community hub, but it's taking time. And the problem is that people sometimes haven't got the time. I mean, I'm finding it very difficult to find my child any type of place to take, like a play group, or and people probably can associate with these things, type of things, and it's the cost. It's the cost. I mean, Healthy Start vouchers, I can go on about them, I get them, but I just solely have to spend that on milk. I'd love to spend that on fruit, I'd love to spend on veg, but this government just don't live in the right planet. A percentage of that is £3.10. Milk, powdered milk alone costs £8, the one that I'm on for my child, and that's only a percentage of that. I still have to use money to pay for the rest of that milk, and I can't get any veg, I can't get any fruit, and I'd love to do all that for my children, and I'd love to give them more healthy stuff, but that's physically not possible through what I'm trying to live on. So what I want to do is to emphasize the balance of doing these webcasts and trying to show you how difficult it is, and it is emotionally difficult, and I'm finding it extremely difficult. I've got a condition called Crohn's disease, which makes it harder for me to try to stay positive. I'm trying to stay positive for the sake of my children, and sometimes I find that that's very, very difficult. I'm tired. I'm always tired, and I just don't really want to be tired, through stress, through worry. But unfortunately, I'm in that pool. I am stressed. I am worried about what the future holds for my children, and where are we going to go with it. I love them to bits, and I'm enjoying every single minute of spending time with them. And as a full-time dad, I can associate with how hard it is for women with children, and especially anybody with even a single child. And I take my hat off to any men that are doing the same business, where they're helping their wives to work and they're looking after the children. I sympathise with any situation, but to be a parent is extremely difficult today in modern society in 2019. I never thought I'd compare it to the war, but the prices and the way things are going, I can't see any comparison. It is extremely hard. It's extremely hard to try to survive in modern society today in this country on benefits. And whether you paint it up on universal credit, I'm on income support, and I'm fortunate to be on there, but if I were to change house or to change any circumstances, then I'll be on universal credit. And there's been so much bad press about it. I understand it's improved, but yet it's something that frightens me. So I emphasize yet again that what I'm trying to do on these podcasts is to give you a little bit of an idea of how difficult it is. I don't want to be negative. I'm quite a confident person to get across to you that I will try to be balanced in what I say. But I know that austerity was brought in because of the huge debt mountain that we had, but it's failure in governments. The problem is, as people, we are probably the biggest problem. We always think it's either Labour or Tory, and I've always said this, sometimes the consensus, the way I look at it, is that if it was a member of every party around the table, you'd have different voices. And the problem that we have sometimes is that we're all cajoled to read what media says to us. It's either Labour or it's either Tory. But in truth, we have Liberal Democrat, we have the national Welsh nationalists, we have Scottish, we have various organisations, and in independence we have people from all those. Maybe we should be, in the way that we vote, be more open in the way we vote. I mean, people used to think that voting for the Greens was mad, but now look how important the green and the environment is. So I look at the issues with the environment, it's just really frightening. And that's another thing that concerns me, is, are we destroying the earth? What are we doing with it? I just really don't think that half the time that we're recycling more than we should be. And that's the biggest concern I have. All these cutbacks, and we're going to cut this and cut that, it just really is frightening. Ghost towns. Another thing, I'll give you a prime example. Haverfordwest, we've got loads of charity shops. The town has turned into a ghost town, and most of the best shops are out of town, and that really is just ridiculous. And the history of this beautiful Pembrokeshire town has just been decimated by very, very poor decisions made by councils that brought in managers at an extremely high cost. And we've got empty buildings. If I could tell you the Shire Hall, which used to be an ex place for people that were convicted, like a jury, a court. It's a beautiful building. The design is oval. It probably could make a wonderful theatre. It could make a wonderful place for entertainment, and it's lying there empty in the centre of the town. It's just ridiculous. I just can't really explain how ridiculous it is. The top of the town, we've got a place called the Crypt that they decided to build flats and shops over it. If I tell you that shop has been empty from the time they've opened it, and they've hardly filled any of the flats, it's just mind-boggling. It really is. But the history of this town is wonderful. We have a beautiful river, and they decided to build a £19 million county hall building along the river, which is just, I just can't really explain how I feel about it. It's just crazy. If I was to say, I'll bring a tourist in and say, by the way, this is what we decided to build along the river, was a council building that cost £19 million. Well, what do I say? What can I say, really? It's just, if you looked at the history of this town, we've got a beautiful castle. We've got the Priory ruins that are just a magnificent place to go and have a look at history. It dates back to the 1200 century. It's the 1200s. It's just unbelievable history. And yet everything is being blighted in this town by poor decision making. And I'm extremely, very, very angry, because I'm a very passionate person about history. I'm a very passionate person about what I want my kids to see and what the family sees, and bringing tourists in and people into my what I class as my town, because I've lived here for nearly 42 years. It's a big chunk of me, and I just scratch my head at some of the things and the decisions that have been made. And yet we're obsessed now with, that's all I hear is budget cuts. And if I hear that word one more time, I think I'm going to scream, oh, austerity is over. It's not over. We are being hammered and hammered and hammered. And it's even proven that people that are being hammered, whenever these austerity decisions are made, it's all to do with the low incomes that are always paying. And I just don't understand how you feel that every time you're hammering people for cuts and cuts this and cuts to the services of that. I mean, they're even looking at rural bus services, cutting all that. It's the people that suffer, and it's people that usually are on low incomes, and they're people with children, old people, and it's people like that really, really irritates me. And what about disabled people? How do they expect that these kind of cutbacks are going to have a knock-on effect on their lives? And it's just disgraceful, and it's shameful, to be quite honest. It's shameful that I'm living in a town that's got a £19 million building, And some of those people and those chief executives in that building are getting £200,000, more than the Prime Minister. It's just shocking. And last year alone, the 5 of them, that wages totaled £1 million. Well, something's got to be asked. What on earth is going on? Because I can tell you something now. I'd like to ask the question. I'd like to ask the question to the Welsh Assembly. My question was, why was that built there in the first place? Because in truth, really, did the people have a say in it? I think the people should have a say in what I think about it now. Because I think it should be displaced, not taken down, but it should be removed, downsized. That council should be downsized. Those people should be downsized because there's been massive restructure anyway. There's been loads of redundancies going on. So, and they're talking about moving some of those services to the post office. Well, my personal opinion is then, let's get the council to downsize, find another building that's going to be smaller. Let's downsize the council to the size of this town and the rural areas, because everything is downsizing. So let's downsize that. And let's get a shopping centre, let's get restaurants all along the river, maybe something that would actually draw tourists in. What a great idea that would be, because we have a wonderful river here. It's called the Cleddau River. Many years, many beautiful years, they used to have a harbour there. Now, what a notion that would be. And let's get back to what Haverfordwest was. It's a history. It has a town. It is a beautiful town. But nobody's listening. That's the problem. Nobody's listening. These people are all put in place. They're making dreadful decisions about Haverfordwest. I'm passionate about Haverfordwest, but I'm passionate about what I think about austerity. It never works. It never has worked. And if people look back in history, it never has done. Unfortunately, I'm not going to even mention this government because I know what I think about the Tory government. Yes, I voted Tory in my life. I voted Labour in my life. I voted them on key decisions. Would I vote for the Tory party at the moment? Well, that's all I'm going to tell you, Mrs May. You're affecting me. You're affecting my children. You're affecting my upkeeping. And the reason is, as I say that, it's affecting. I can't pay bills. I can't buy basic shopping. And the problem is I have here now is that I've got a 2-year-old, a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old struggling every single day to live, struggling. And that's bordering on your government and your decision making. Now, there's another thing, Theresa May, when you come in as the Prime Minister and the first interview that you make and you're turning up in a £900 pair of trousers, what does that tell me about you? Are you living on my planet? Because none of you are. None of you are living on my planet. Now, you come into my shoes for a month and see how you could survive, because I doubt very much if you could. Because this is the problem with society today. Why should everybody be based in a rich place somewhere like London? You've got the Houses of Parliament in London. Why should it be placed there? Come and start going into rural cities. Manchester, Liverpool. Start seeing how people actually live, because I begin to think that half the time in this world, people don't realise how people live. There's a struggle going on, and it's a struggle. And there was an Australian Prime Minister, and I take my hat off to him. He went right round this country and he met a lot of people on low incomes struggling. And a lot of people telling me exactly the same. We're poor, we're struggling. Well, is anybody going to listen? Because somebody needs to. Because the problem is with society at the moment, people are getting poorer. People are getting sick. People are getting ill. And the downright problem of society and cutbacks is increasing crime. You're pushing the country into recession because you're increasing everybody's bill. And there's another thing as well, the council tax. Now, that's an horrendous tax that needs dealing with, and you cannot keep increasing council tax at the rate that you're doing it. You need to start to sort these situations out. And the only way to change society and to get us more level is to cap everything for 5 years, to get people back up to a level where they can actually start to save some money. Because what I want to hear is people actually saving money, because that's all I hear is people getting into debt and spending money because they have no choice. So when are you going to turn society round and get people to save money? Because I can't save money. I can't save money at all. Not for my children. Where's my children's future? How can I have a future? Mrs. May, you tell me, where's my future? Where's my future for my children? My 2-year-old, my 7-year-old, my 9-year-old. Where's my future? Because I'd love to know where it is. I hope I leave that with you, people, because I'm one of many parents, whether they be women or men. I'm one of many parents in this situation. Thank you.